Let's see, I have been programming for some time, then sort of stopped programming a couple of months ago. Uh, Originally from Kenya, so that is in Africa. And I guess from there, my big passion, or my greatest passion, has been always about communities and people, and sort of like getting people together and then getting them towards a specific goal. So sometimes I end up, of course, my purpose has to be there, or I have my own selfish objectives, which is I always want people to be really amazing and be good at whatever things they do. And so that aligned with whatever things people want to do, I've always found out to be really amazing. So for me, done communities before, worked at Intel, and then I've also worked at Kiosk, did some stuff with Microsoft a little bit, and then yeah, then now I am here in Berlin. So I had to move to Berlin a couple of months ago. And now I am an engineering manager at Thermondo in Berlin. It was a movie. The Matrix, the original Matrix, the trilogy. Leave this latest one. I'm talking about the original Matrix. So they're not paying me for this, just as an FYI. That was, for me, the best movie, I guess, at that stage that I loved. And I think it started from the fascination of, you know, that bit where they're seated and then before you realize that they're actually taking their subconscious and they're moving into this zone. I always imagine that it's actually possible. And there's some kid in me that still imagines that it's possible for someone to actually be moved there. And I think it started from that point where I used to think, yeah, it's actually possible for you to do numbers and then they'll appear like this green stuff on a black screen. And then you can move into it, you know? And I think I started from there, then started tinkering with, we had this very old computers back in the house. My dad bought one, and it has this, I say it had like a back part of it, leave the slim ones, you know, the CRT ones, exactly. So I love them because they were interesting in that I always thought that, oh, this is where that person is going to. And that's where the world is, you know, the tech thing. Later on, in the first time I had the word cloud, I thought like, oh yeah, wait, the cloud is just like here, you know? It's just like this virtual place. And I was always fascinated with trying to get into this small space. And then I think started tinkering. Need for Speed Most Wanted is the first game I started getting mods for. And I really quickly realized that my enjoyment was not in playing the game, was in creating mods for it and then watching my brothers just like play it and having these like things that are randomly popping up and then seeing the way they react from the end. I think aside from tinkering, tweaking lots of stuff, then I think I'm around 2012, exactly, yes, 12, 11. I was actually robbed in an apartment that I was staying. And when they robbed me when I was there, it actually now cemented that skill because then I had this phone, very small Samsung Galaxy Mini, and I spent a lot of time looking into it. That's how I was dealing with the whole shock. And so I think trying to figure out how can I change from Samsung to like, welcome, Mr. Frank Tamre, you know, felt really important. It's just like an opening thing. And I think when that happened, when I started tinkering and knowing like how the Android operating system works, yeah, tweaking things, building stuff around for fun. That for me was I want to be really good at sharing this knowledge with other people. And so I never looked at anything to do with this is where I want, like it was not, for me, I've never looked at it as a point in time. Like I want to be this specific role. Mine is always, I'm more fascinated or more excited about the process. And the process for me here is the training. Like, what am I doing every single day to get there? To like the technical journey that I've gone through, it has always not been like a point in time. For me, it has always been, okay, so there's this new thing or this thing that I don't know about. And I really invest a lot of time into saying, I really want to be good at it. And then be able to explain this to someone else via coffee, or even someone who's not technical enough to tell them like, hey, you know what? There's this thing called a compiler. Do you know what a compiler is? And then you break it down to them. And then they start asking you questions, especially if they're not technical, because I usually evaluate that to say, if I can explain to an untechnical person about very heavy technical things, then it means that they actually can understand it. And I actually do understand it. It's like explain to me like I'm 5 years old or something like that. One word is probably a little bit to say I'm very servant oriented, you know? My ultimate happiness is when the team can be able to do things but they don't remember my impact. I know it's very confusing for most people, but I never like being at the center stage of anything. My joy is when you join a team, you get to enable them so well such that it's like wind, you know? Wind is the best example. You feel it, but you can't see it. You only see the effect. And so for me, that's what I like to be like. It's mostly, I want them to feel such that they know, hey, I did this myself, but they can't really point and say, Frank did this. But then they know I did something, or like this continuous small things that you start playing with them. They know your effect. Don't get me wrong, they really feel your effect. But it's my joy and happiness is when they do things and they can actually trace and say, I actually did it myself. I actually was able to do this. And I keep on pointing that to them every single time. Like, hey, you have this ability. My work here is to ensure that you actually get better. Because technically, I'm just like a coach in the team. My work is to ensure, like, hey, let me put you at this position and this position, and let me get the best out of you. And then we slowly get the things that you're really looking at as your weakness. Let me get you to shine so that you don't forget that and you work on that so that you're really, really best at it. So I guess mine is mostly like servanthood-ish. And I really love it when we really like I'm more inclusive with everyone. And not only saying like, okay, so this is a good person, this one's not a good person, so then we get rid of them. No, it's like, okay, really, can we try and work together and get to a certain common goal that we want to get to? Because at the bottom line, everyone wants to be amazing. Everyone wants to be amazing. And so the thing is, if that's what I'm operating on, I have to create processes and things that will enable them to be really amazing at whatever things that they do. Yeah. For work-life balance, you have to be very deliberate about it. If you're not deliberate about creating those demarcations, then it's easy for work to spill over to any other side. And the truth is, you have to ask yourself, like, why are you working? I'm working because of X, Y, Z. But then if you're working, are you actually taking time out to like refresh yourself so that you can get back to work and really perform really well? So on top of the fact that companies can create this and talk about it, but you as an individual needs to take that responsibility and say, hey, I'm actually going to create those demarcations and create those boundaries to say, this is what I'm working on, this is what this time is, and this is what I'm supposed to do, and this is what I'm not supposed to do at this specific time. So mine is, I think I summarize it as know why you want to do it. Why do you want to get into tech? And this is where your why is it doesn't matter. You don't need to align this into, I want to change the world or something like that. It's your why. Choose what your why is. The what comes afterwards. By the what, it means if your why is, I give my example is, I just wanted to know how to get into my computer, into this virtual world. That's the only thing. And then what drove me was now I started finding out, like, what do I need to do this? Then what's the next step? But in your why also, it's important for you to actually define where exactly do you want to fall into. I'm interested in mobile phones, small devices, or this AI thing is very fascinating right now because everyone is talking about it. Okay, cool. Go spend time, read about it.